Let's continue with part 2 of this first class on 13th October 2015. I think I said 2005 in the first part, but it's really 2015, so I apologize for that. So let me go to the second slide, after the title slide, and just recap what I'm going to cover in this part 2. Is this is going to focus on the HERO plant tour scheduled for 24th October. I'm going to give you an overview of the two reading materials that you need to prepare for the course, the tour, and then talk about how to evaluate lean from a Toyota perspective. Okay, let me continue now with slide 3. The learning objectives for this part 2 is to learn how to take an effective tour, factory tour, by focusing on processes. I think this is going to be real key, is to understand the flow through a factory and step by step how things work and things, how well they're integrated across the factory floor. Learn how to evaluate a plant's lean compliance. How lean are they, and what are some of the key aspects to lean, how they focus on reduction in waste and inventory and so on. Also, I'm going to review some of the key lean terminology and kind of make sure you understand. I'm sure a lot of you have already had courses and read books about lean, but I think it'd be good to kind of recap some of the primary lean terms that should be used when you're evaluating a plant. Then also how to learn how to recognize waste. It's certainly a lot of waste in any operation, and even though a company like HERO is very efficient, there's always opportunity for improvement. That's one of Toyota's key things, is continuous improvement. So no matter how well they're doing, they always recognize there's still waste in the system and it can be removed. Okay, now the next slide is just the introduction to the HERO company, and I'm going to give you some background information. Again, some of this will be in the article that you're going to be reading before the plant visit. But just kind of taking something off their website, and this is one way I encourage you all to, whenever you get your project assignments, to look at the company's website if they have one, and this give you a lot of information about the background of the company and what their vision and mission is and so on. So just kind of looking at this vision statement on slide 5, let me just kind of read it to you. We at the HERO Cycles are continuously striving for synergy between technology, systems, and human resources to provide products and services that meet the quality, performance, and price aspirations of our customers. While doing so, we maintain the highest standards of ethics and societal responsibilities, constantly innovating products and processes, and develop teams that keep the momentum going to take the group to the excellence in everything we do. So I think this is a pretty powerful statement, and you see a lot of terms here, the focus on customers, the focusing on the teamwork within the company, standards and ethics. So a lot of key words that you can take from this vision statement that shows that this is a very successful and proud company. Now let me move on to the next slide, slide 6. And this is a simple mission statement. Again, I'll read it to you. Forge a unique and mutually beneficial relationship with all of our stakeholders. We are committed to move ahead resolutely on this path shown to us by our visionaries like the four Munjal brothers. These were the founders of the company. So I think, again, very simple mission statement, but it kind of has some key words like mutually beneficial relationships. And it says all stakeholders. So you can imagine the stakeholders are not only the owners of the company, but they would be the customers, suppliers, and certainly the employees. So it is very important that you are all inclusive when you're writing a mission statement, so that everybody can be part of the team. The next slide, slide 7, is some background information that I was able to pick up from the website. And let me kind of paraphrase this a little bit. It's kind of a busy slide, so I'll let you kind of focus on this for a minute, and I'll kind of paraphrase the 4 bullet points. So basically, the 4 Magell brothers are the men who are behind the mission. They basically were knitted together based on the wealth of will, integrity, and ambition and determination. So basically, they were driven to be successful. And you know when it says wealth, it doesn't mean wealth and money, but the wealth and will, integrity, ambition, and determination. So it's not always about the money you have when you're running a business, but it's more the determination and the will. They started the company back in 1944, and it was really initially a bicycle spare parts business. And it began to grow modestly over a 3-year period. But by 1956, the brothers decided they need to begin to assemble the entire cycle at their manufacturing facility. So this was a pretty modest start. They were only talking about 25 cycles a day. So that was very minimal capability initially. But after a few years, they were able to attract many people, and in fact skilled engineers and other people to help them grow the business. So from that modest beginning in 1956, Hero produces over 18,000 cycles a day, which is the highest in the world at one facility. With its 48% share of the Indian market, this volume has catapulted Hero into the Guinness Book of Records back in 1986. So then, since then, Hero Cycles have been able to maintain its leadership in the cycle manufacturing industry. And I said, I think earlier that originally, not originally, but in the prior years, they were a joint venture with Honda Motors, but now they're an independent company once again. So again, a little bit of background that's useful for you to understand about the Hero company. Now let's talk about preparation for the plant tour. On slide 8 is the title slide, so let me go on to slide 9. And this is one of the reading assignments that you will need to read before you take the plant tour. And it's a pretty interesting article, a note on plant tours. In this pamphlet, they talk about 3 types of tours, which is kind of interesting because it's something I had never really thought of. And one, a tour to learn, and this is kind of the type of tour that you're going to be going on, is to learn. But also, there's tours to assess and tours to teach. So let me first break down some of the aspects of the tours to learn. And some of these apply to all 3 of these, but primarily what I want you to focus on this tour is, and we said earlier, is to focus on the processes, not just the numbers. So you're going to hear a lot about the numbers, the production rate per day and other statistics, but the focus is, when you walk through the plant, is how well are the processes linked together. The other thing is, do you have the right people on the tour? Now, in this case, you're all required to go on a tour, and you're going to be broken up in teams. But if you were going to benchmark another company, you need to make sure you have the right composite of people. So you don't want to take everybody from engineering, or everybody from accounting, or everybody from manufacturing. So you may want to build your team from different functions, so that you can all look at things in a different way, and to be able to benchmark and learn from the company you're touring. Next is keep an open mind and don't be too judgmental. Now, one of the things that a lot of companies do when they benchmark another company is they say, well, yeah, they do it pretty good at company X, but it won't work at our company. So they're always explaining away why a company that may be more successful or have a unique process, it can't work back at their company. So that is important, that you don't be too judgmental and assume that just because they do it differently that it can't work at the company you work for. The other thing is you visit plants in different industries. When I was, for example, at Toyota, we went and visited other automotive companies like Ford, but we also went to Dell Computers. And at that time, back in 1999, Dell Computers was innovating the build-to-order computer business. So we were able to go visit Dell to understand how their processes worked and how they were able to manage demand and so on. So it's useful to always look at other industries that you can benchmark. Now the other two, I won't go into detail on tours to assess, but tours to assess, what that is, the purpose of those is if you were going to look at a company to invest in, or maybe to do a merger or an acquisition, then that would be a tour to assess. So you would have certain criteria you'd be looking for, and certain things you would look at to see how successful that company is, how well run, and so on. So that would be an assessment tour. Tours to teach is a little bit different, because here is, say you are in a company, maybe you're at the headquarters or at one of the larger plants, and you have a plant that is less efficient or maybe needs help, then maybe your team would go there and to try to teach the people as you're going through the tours by asking questions and pointing out certain things and kind of identifying where there's opportunities for improvement. So that would be a kind of a different purpose, but the idea is that you would be, rather than trying to learn, you would try to point out how they could do things differently or to improve. So this is kind of a summary of what you can learn in this reading assignment. So I encourage all of you to take notes and pay attention and read this article thoroughly. So let me go on to the next slide, slide 10. And this is the next reading assignment, is read a plant fast. So this is another a good assessment tool called Rapid Plant Assessment, RPA, and it points out there's 11 categories, or a checklist of 11 things you can learn to assess the lean capability of a plant. So one is customer satisfaction. How well are they focusing on the customer? Because in the lean environment, everything evolves around the customer. Now, when we say customer, we don't necessarily always mean the final consumer that's buying your product, but the customer is always the next person in line in the process. So when you're going from one department or one segment of line to the next, it could be the next team, it could be the next department. So it's internal customers as well as the ultimate consumer. Second is, how is the company managed as far as the safetiness and environmental conditions? Are they focusing on the environmental challenges of a business, the cleanliness and order of the plant floor? So you can see, for example, the markings, are the walkways clearly marked? Are there danger signs when there's hazardous material? Do they wear hard hats and safety goggles and so on? So those are things to watch when you're looking at the safetiness of a company. Next is visual management systems. This would be, do they use something we call andon lights? And I'll talk about that in a few minutes when I talk about the Toyota lean aspects. Are there signs? Are there markings around the factory? Are there visual boards where they are publishing their KPIs and charts and graphs and so on? So how visual are they in managing their factory? The scheduling system is important, and this is something that you may have to ask about. Are they scheduling their product based on the customer demand? We call that tack time. So the pace of the production is based on the final output of the assembly line, not each of the different feeder lines independently. So you want to make sure there's not a lot of batch accumulating in inventory. Number 5 is the use of the space, material flow and product line flow. And I'll talk about this a little bit more about the way the product is flowed down the assembly line in a single piece flow. How much inventory is in process? Is there, do you see buffers and stacks of inventory in between one step and another, or is it what we call single piece flow, where it's moving sequentially down the line, one bike at a time? Number 8 is the condition and maintenance of tools and equipment. Does it look like their equipment is in good shape, or is there something that you see, maybe oil or grease around the bottom of a press or some other component? So making sure that the tools and equipment are clean and in excellent working condition. Even things like forklifts and so on, you can kind of look to see how clean and shiny they are and kept in good working condition. Number 9, the management of complexity and variability. So in any big plant, whether it's a motorcycle plant or automobile plant, there's a lot of complexity, different types of motorcycles, different options and so on. So how well does a company manage that complexity? Again, this is something you may want to ask some questions about, as it may not be easily recognizable just by the viewing the assembly line. And then the next one is supply chain integration. How do they place orders to their suppliers, and the suppliers delivering right to the shipping dock, receiving dock, or how often do they get shipments in? So again, this can be ascertained by maybe asking questions. Then last but not least is their commitment to quality. This is very important, and you can kind of look at, again, is there a rework area? Is there an area at the end of the assembly line where there are a lot of products or bicycles stored where they're repairing? Or is that first time, we'll call it first time through quality, is very important. So you can see these are key components of evaluating a plant, whether you're evaluating for learning or in some cases even the assessment. So let me move on to slide 11, and this is some of the additional terms I want to go over with you as far as lean, the lean terminology, how to identify waste, what is a process flow and single piece flow, how to create level production. I think that's very important from a factory and efficiency, especially in Toyota. And again, what is a visual factory and how to ensure quality. So I won't be able to cover all of these in detail, but I want to just give you highlights. So let me talk about first in slide 12 is what is lean. This is a simple definition of lean that most books can be read that learn about lean. So basically, lean is a term that is an offshoot of the Toyota production system. So basically, TPS was the kind of the forerunner of lean. And today, most companies, consultants use the term lean and not call it Toyota production system, but it's basically the same thing. So lean simply means the relentless pursuit of elimination of waste across the value stream. So that means all the way from the supplier through the manufacturing to the customer. So any activity other than the creation of value for the end customer is considered wasteful and thus a target for elimination. Now you'll find out in your readings on lean, not everything can be completely eliminated. For example, transportation is a waste because it doesn't add value, but you still need to have some transportation to ship your product to the customer or receive parts from the suppliers. So now let me go on to the next slide, slide 13. And this is just a scattering of some of the lean terminology. Now I won't go through all of these, but certainly if you want to take time to search these, you can find out what different terminology means. Like I said, I'm going to cover a few of these, like Visual Factory, Ejunka, and Jidoka and that, but I won't be able to cover them all. So now the next slide is the definition of waste. And so waste is anything that takes time, resources, or space, but does not add value of the product or service to the customer. So again, there's a lot of different categories of waste, and let me go on to the next slide. And there's 7 types of waste that TPS and Lean has defined. And I'm sure most of you, again, if you've done any reading, are aware of these, but let me just cover these fairly quickly. First one is transportation or conveyance. So this, again, could be transportation from your suppliers to the plant or from the assembly plant to the customer, as well as the internal conveyance within the plant. Forklifts traveling around to move parts and so on. The next is inventory. This gives in-process inventory as well as finished goods inventory. The third is motion. Now what this means is the motion of the workers. How much moving of their hands to get parts and that are they doing? How much walking are they doing to pick a part off of a rack and so on? So this would be a people motion or workers motion. Waiting is the next category, and this means is there some downstream process that is waiting for material to get to them? So are they waiting for the line to move or some other product to be delivered to them? The next is overproduction. This is one of the worst types of waste because it actually creates multiple types of waste. So this means are you producing more than you need? So one of the things that's key in the Toyota experience is that you don't produce products until the customer or the downstream customer needs it. So if the downstream customer is behind or has some kind of a stoppage, then you need to stop. So you don't try to maximize how many parts you can produce per hour. You basically try to synchronize with your downstream customer. The next category is over-processing. And this means that you're taking too big of a machine or too sophisticated machine to produce something. You really only want to use the appropriate size machine to produce the material you're working on. So you don't want to over-process or over-invest in something when it's not necessary. And the final is defect or quality problems, and certainly any kind of a defect requires rework, or worse yet, if it gets to the customer, it may have a warranty issue or a customer satisfaction issue. So now one way we've learned to remember this is the word Timwood. So you can see by using the first letter of each of these 7 defects, it spells Timwood. So that's something to remember if you can't remember the 7 types of waste. All right, so let me go on now to the next topic, and that's in slide 16, if you're keeping up on the slideshow there. This is flow. So a set of processes that are linked together in a specific sequence to produce a product or service. Flow should be one of the main objectives of a lean organization. Ideally, production should flow continuously all the way from raw materials to the customer. So the whole supply chain should be a flow. And basically the idea is that if you look at assembly line, usually there's a very sequential flow down the assembly line. But even without the assembly line, you should be able to see a flow from one department to another and finally to the shipping dock. And sometimes we refer this to single piece flow in the lean or the TPS jargon. The next topic is Hijunka. This means to create a level production. So one of the things that's key with Toyota is that they want to establish the same mix of products hour by hour, day by day, week by week, so that the whole supply chain is synchronized to produce a very standard amount of product over a period of time. And this way it makes the whole supply chain synchronized and efficient by not batching production. So in other words, you don't want to build all red cars, then all blue ones. You want to produce the same mix of vehicles or bicycles or whatever product one by one. The next slide is on visual factory. And this means that how well is a plant using visual controls such as signs, charts, lights, other things to provide visible information about the status and progress of the operation. The idea is to allow quick recognition of the production performance so that everyone can easily understand the status and able to detect the problem. Because one of the things that's key is that if there's a problem in the plant, you want everybody to recognize it so that the appropriate people can go and see what's going on and help resolve the problem. So visual factory is an important aspect of lean. Next is how to ensure quality. There's two key things in a factory, and one is jidoka, which is a Japanese word that means that a method for a machine to automatically detect the variance from a standard so that the production is stopped and so that no defective parts are produced. There are two types used. There's automatic machine stop, which is poka-yoke, which is a mistake processing, and the other one is to have a manual check or inspection at the end of the process. So you want the machine to be able to automatically detect if there's a problem in the measurement or the inspection of the part it is producing. The next part of how to ensure quality is and-on. So a lot of times you'll see there are boards in the factory that shows different lights, like a street light, red, yellow, and green, whether a process is going properly. Certainly red usually means that there's a problem, the machine or the process is stopped, and you need to go over and inspect that problem. Yellow means that there's a potential problem that may be slowing down or about to come to a stop, and so on. And green usually means it's running properly. So and-on is a key attribute that's used in the factory, and it's also part of the visual factory. So just a reminder here about your post-Hero factory tour assignments. You've got two assignments. One is the individual page paper due on 2nd November, and the team assignment due on 9th of November. Now we'll take time, if I'm doing this in person, I'll take time to introduce the next group of students. So again, we won't do this on a videotape, but if we're doing this live, I'll ask the next group of students to introduce themselves. So that wraps up part 2 of this first class. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll be back in a few minutes with part 3. Thank you again.